Good morning, good morning. Welcome to today's board gaming breakfast. Hope everyone's having a great Thursday morning. Let me just finish setting up here. For those of you who are new to the live streams, I like to go live every morning, weekdays, Monday through Friday, to do a quick little brainstorm session, talk about games that we've been playing and games that have been on my mind, and we're through a couple design challenges just to get the creative juices flying for the workday. So the way the board game breakfasts work is I like to start with the game of the day and talk about that, what I like, the mechanics that make it fun, why I find that it's a good fit for our collection, and then we'll move into adding a random mechanic into the game of the breakfast, which I'll explain that when we get to it. And then we'll wrap up by designing a board game in 5 minutes or less. So with all that preamble out of the way, let's jump right into the game of the day. Woo! So today's game of the day, I brought Project L. So Project L is another one of our favorite fillers to introduce to non-hobby gamers as a way to sucker them in and convince them that board gaming is fun. And so it is a engine building style game, and you're going to be doing that through various polyomino pieces. Also commonly known as Tetris pieces. So this is a player board, and I have it on the, I believe it is French, but they're dual language. But everyone will get dealt out one of these player boards, and if you have the first player marker, that means you get to be the first player of the game. And how this will work is everyone will start with two of the same tiles. You'll get a little 2-piece and a little 1-piece. And so as you can see over here, you can slowly upgrade the pieces to be more powerful. But what you're going to be doing is drafting tiles from these open markets, as you can see here. And your goal is to fill those tiles with your pieces. And so how the game is played is everyone can hold up to 4 active boards at a given time, and on your turn you'll get to take up to 3 actions. So similar as to yesterday's game when we talked about Century Golem Edition, this also only has 4. I take it back. This has 5 actions that you can do on your turn, but you only get 3 to take 3 actions for your turn. So an example would be on my turn, I could take a puzzle from the market. I could then place 2 pieces to complete it. And what happens once you've completed a tile is there's 2 pieces of information that not all cards have, but some of them do. So every completed puzzle will give you the tiles that you used to complete it back, but you'll also gain the benefits on the top. So if we completed this one, we would gain one of these L pieces to our tile supply, and then we would get to put this face down in our scoring pile for later. And this one, if we complete it at the end of the game, would be worth 2 points. And so you'll play until there's 2 different types of decks, or tile decks. There are the black tiles and the white tiles, and when the black tile deck runs out, you will complete the round and move into final scoring, and whoever's been able to complete the most points in their scoring pile is the winner. And so that is a quick overview of the game. There are some small, little details that we don't need to get into now. Today is not for a rules teach, just a general overview. But I'd like to get into what I find the most unique and fun part of this game, and that's the engine of tiles that you get to build up. So as you're going through and building and filling in these different spaces with your tiles, you're going to be gaining these uh, bonuses on the top of them. And so each tile has a bonus piece associated to it. And so as the game progresses, you're going to slowly be building up a supply of these tile resources, or these polyomino shapes. And what I find so cool about that is that you don't lose the tiles when you've completed a puzzle, which I find to be really cool because you just get a continuous reward. And so then it becomes this fun little timing scenario where you're trying to be able to have these shapes to cover in any given round, but you also have to plan out which tiles you want to get as the reward. And so that system of gaining more tiles and trying to select the ones that will be give you the most variety and give you the most options for a little piece supply, as well as balancing always having tiles at the top of your player board to fill, is the main puzzle of this game. But I find that it's done so well. And I know we only talk about game mechanics in these live streams, but the dual layered player tile pieces and having the bakelite pieces kind of just fit in and sit is such a nice quality of life component to this game. I think that if they were just flat sheets almost like this, where the tiles could slip around and mess up, the game would still be a fun mechanic, but you would lose so much in the aesthetics and playability of this. Just, I don't know if we're going to be able to pick it up that well, but there's this UV dotting on the tiles themselves. You can kind of see it there. And so just those small production pieces of this game really take it from a fun game to a phenomenal entry point game to introduce people into the hobby. And so that is this morning's game of the day. It is Project L, and it is by, I did not have this prepped. Let's see if they got it on the rulebook. Of course, I pulled out the rulebook that is not in English. So let's see if they have that on the back of the. So it's developed by Board Cubator and it's published by the Asmodee Group. Let's see if I can find the designer. Game design is by Jan Sukal, Michael Mikes, and Adam Spanel. I probably butchered those names, I apologize, but that is Project L. So now what we like to do is we will change OBS screens really quick once I have gotten all of the bits and bobs off to the side, as we'll switch over and we will go to our wheel of game mechanics and press the spin button. And so this is going to pull up a random game mechanic that we have to try and design around and put into the game of the day. Oh god. So we pulled up acting. Screen share is connecting. Alright, let's pause for technical difficulties. Maybe I'll plug in my tablet, see if that pops it up. Appreciate everyone standing by. Try my best to not have any dead air. Screen share is no longer active. Oh god. What are we gonna do? Alright, let's try again. Stop sharing. You're no longer sharing screens. Present with screen share. Accept. How are we looking? Boom, we are in the money. Let me just get the workspace all situated. It's all planned. Alright, so we are back on track. So we got acting as the mechanic that we have to try to get into Project L. I am not looking forward to this design. 5 minutes. What do we got in the comments? It makes me Michaela's being funny in the comments today. Alright, so how this works is we will pull up a 5-minute timer on our phone, and we will hit the start button after I've explained what we're doing in this segment. So we'll have 5 minutes to try to brainstorm how we might fit the acting mechanic into Project. Oh no, we lost connection. Ah! Project L. So screen share is no longer active. Alright, hopefully third time is the charm. So we'll jump back over and hit screen share, accept. We are connecting. We are back in business. All right, well, hopefully it doesn't go down a third time, but we will not dilly-dally, and we will start the timer. So we got Project L, and we got to do acting to... I'm just going to use chat's idea. And so Michaela in chat had the idea of Hole in the Wall, I believe the name of the TV show was, where you had to fit in the hole as the wall was moving towards you, or you get bumped into the pit. We are going to take that concept and we're going to say that every time you complete or fill a tile, you have to get up and act out and try and make the shape that you completed. And if you get thumbs up from the entire table, maybe you get an extra bonus point or something like that. I don't know if I would tie in victory points from like the acting into it, because then I feel like people would be in bad faith voting against people doing really well. So this would just be a funny house rule of anytime you're looking to select a tile or maybe complete a tile, I'm not sure which one would be more enjoyable. You have to act out. This would be an easy one to act out. So if we were to complete this guy here, we would have to act out that we are the straight piece. And unfortunately, we would get no points for that. But I think that would add a fun little flair to the game. So I'm not going to act out every piece, but it would be maybe this is your head. Maybe we'll just draw how the people would pretend to be the pieces. Oh God. We'll just drop their head back. So that's an easy one because you got the little chair. And so you keep the hands out there. And so it'd be similar to the hole in the wall party game, but anytime you wanted to complete a piece, you would have to imitate and replicate the shape in order to score it. And so I think that is as good as we're going to get for acting in this brainstorm. Are there any other thoughts in chat of how you might change Project L to include acting? It's hard to act like an L piece other than imitate it through interpretive dance. While the timer is still going, maybe we'll do one more crazy big scoring one. And so this is the piece here. And so we'd have the tile. And in order for us to get 5 points, we'd have to make ourselves into this shape. And so we got, maybe we puff out our chest and make ourselves look like a big gorilla. And so I think there would be some fudging soft rules to that, but I'm going to stop rambling. That is how you'd get acting into Project L. So we got 15 seconds left in the timer. I'm going to stop that. So to recap, the game that we were trying to modify was Project L, and we're challenged to put acting into the game of Project L. And so what we came up with is that before you can score the piece, you have to do an interpretive dance or become the shape puzzle that you're trying to score. And so I like the idea of having to do it as the payoff of when you complete the tile. And so how I would test this is the next time we were with a group of people playing Project L, I would say, hey, I have a fun house rule. It's to kind of loosen up. I'd probably use Project L as a kind of like a party game before we were hosting a party, like if we had a couple friends over, just to lighten the mood. I'd be like, hey, Josh and Kaylin, do you want to play Project L with Michaela and I? We have a house rule that before you can score the tile pieces, you have to act out the shape. And hopefully they would be willing participants, and that's how I would test out getting acting into Project L. Feel free to let me know in the comments below if you have other ideas of how you might be able to act in Project L. I look forward to reading those in the comments when this video goes live. But now we will move on to the final course of today's breakfast. So we will give ourselves a new page and hope that the tablet doesn't go out again. And we will switch over to our next tab. And so we are going to design a game from a randomly generated prompt in, again, a 5-minute time window. So how this works is we're on letsmakeagame.net, and they got a great tool called this game idea generator that is usually more prompt-wise directed towards video games, but we are doing our best to make it work as a launching point for our brainstorm session today. So what'll happen is when I click the generate button, it will give us a genre, a rule, a setting, and a theme for us to try to ideate around. And once the timer starts, we'll try and come up with a game from scratch, or use the influence of the games behind me to create a completely new idea. So with that preamble out of the way, let's generate a prompt. So our genre is cooking, our rule is 1 minute, our setting is cyberpunk, and our theme is natural disaster. And so before we jump into it, I need to pull up the timer again, and we are off. So I'm instantly thinking of Cooking Mama. So cyberpunk and natural disaster. So potentially we are in a setting where in the distant future we have some cybernetic modifications, but we have chosen that we want cybernetic modifications that help us with cooking around the house. And so we got Mr. Pan Boy, and potentially he's got a spatula arm. And so these characters are the roles that we're taking on, and so we haven't figured out what exactly, maybe we'll put a little egg in there, the mechanics are, but so it would be a timed, I'm thinking timed dexterity. And so this feels like it would be a party game, and so the thoughts behind it is that there are different items or shapes that you draw from a deck of cards. So we have our deck of cards that you'll pull 2 of them, and this will tell you the 2 items you have to cook with for the round. And on the card, it will have potentially one of the block shapes that you have to cook with, and these shapes would all represent some type of ingredient, and it would also have, so you potentially have that, and then you'd have some sort of utensil, and the cards themselves would have 2 different shapes on them, and you'll draw 3 for the round, and you'll have to select 1 for your left hand, 1 for your right hand, and then the middle object would be the placing object. And so once you have selected, or maybe they're not multi-choice, maybe they're just a bunch of different shapes. And you would then have the long one, and we would have, maybe one's got sort of a geodesic dome top, or something like that, where you'll select the 2 that you're using to, Project L is a perfect example for this game. So the idea is that it'd be a party-style dexterity game where you are drawing from the deck the 3 items that you'll have the options of, and 2 of them will become your cybernetic body parts that you're using, and the 3rd one will be the item that you have to place. And so if we have our cooking surface here, that say the tiles that we draw, as we have the options here, and so say we're going to place this or use this as the placing piece, we would have to then hold the other two pieces we'd have a minute to place it on the cooking surface, and then the next person would go and say they drew 3 of the same pieces. They'd be doing the same thing of trying to pick up and balance the cooking ingredient. Oh god, I did it so I flawlessly executed the first time. And they would have to stack it on top within the minute. Ooh. And you would go until somebody, say the next person, got 2 L's and a straight piece, and they chose to hold the 2 L's. They would have to get everything cooked on the prep circuit, and you would go until somebody knocks another player's piece off. And so it'd be kind of like animal upon animal, but instead of there'd be an extra element of dexterity of these are your cybernetic modifications that you get each round, and you would play until somebody knocks off another piece, and then they'd be out for the round, and it would go to a 30-second timer, and then maybe when it's so if you're playing with 4 people, like every time the timer somebody gets knocked out, the timer gets shortened. And so I think that is an easy enough concept that we came up with. So I'll switch back to the other screen. So to recap, we had to come up with a creative idea for a game based off of the prompt of the genre being cooking, the rule being 1 minute, the setting being cyberpunk, and the theme being natural disaster. We kind of ignored the natural disaster part of it. That's okay. We could paste that on with maybe the card art or something like that. But we had decided that we would come up with a bunch of cards with a bunch of different shapes on them, and we would we could make it like a co-op competitive style game. And so you would come up with maybe 20 different cards that match 20 different shapes. And so at the start of the game, all of the shapes would be placed out here. And so we have our 20 different shapes. Something like this. So we got all 20 of them. Boop, 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 boop. And you would shuffle the 20 card deck, and then at the start of your turn, you would draw 3, choose which 2 you're going to use for your left and right hand, and the third one would be the piece that you have to place on the cooking surface. Let's do a better example of picking that piece up, Sam. Come on. Oh god, for some reason these short stubby T pieces. Oh, I was there. I lost focus. This is good, great content. So you then have to pick up the third piece, place it on the cooking surface. The cooking surface would be a elevated small place tile, and the goal of the game is to be the last one that doesn't have a piece fall off the table. As soon as it touches the cooking surface, it has to stay on or it would fall off, and you would then discard the 2 pieces that you chose as your holding pieces, and the next person would draw 3 more cards from the deck, and you would go until the deck runs out. Then you'd reshuffle. You'd remove the tiles that are placed already on the cooking surface from the game. So the 2 that you used as your cybernetic hand pieces, those would be able to be shuffled back into the deck, and you would play until there is 1 cook left standing. The cooperative rule is that maybe you're all playing as a team, and your goal is to get through the entire deck with having all the shapes on the cooking surface. So that is our cooking dexterity game that we came up with for today's brainstorm. So how I would test that is I would probably honestly use the polyomino pieces that we used from today's game of Project L, and I would come up with 20. I'd pick 2. How many we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, we only got 9 of these shapes. All right, maybe that's fine. We'll do kind of like the wonky ones. So I'd probably instead come up, I would 3D model and print these guys, and I would just take 20 of these basic tiles as the deck. And so once those are 3D printed, I would then create the simple rule structure on just maybe a Word document. And I would ask my lovely fiance, Michaela, if she wanted to play our Dexterity Party game to see if it was fun. And if there's enough fun reception there, figure out the timing to make it kind of that rushed game. And the next time we had friends or family over and we're looking to play a fun game, I would probably say, I got an idea for a game that I've been working on. And tell them about this cybernetic punk cooking game and see if that is a hit. So I'd have to model the table to sit on. I could probably just get away with my Yeti cup as the start. So all we'd have to do is figure out what tiles would be the most fun to try and work with, and then I would mock those up in a free modeling software and print them on my 3D printer. And I'd say that I'd use an arbitrary, I'd probably base them off of, maybe I'd upsize them a little just because you want to fill up the space quicker, but I'd go and figure out the potential ratio that feels fun. I'd probably start with either a quarter or a half inch block as my main modeling increment, and I would print those shapes, and then we'd be off having fun. And so if that was fun, then potentially I would, we have lost connection, but that's okay. We'll just switch over to the full camera. Lost my train of thought. Oh, if that was a fun initial concept, I would probably then take those modeled shapes and create my own cards and probably add fun little challenge rules to each card to up the variability of it. But that is how I take the idea that we talked about today from a cooking party game to try to see if it plays well. So with that, we've come to the end of today's Board Gaming Breakfast. If you like the content and want, I would love it if you'd subscribe to follow along. We do this every weekday morning until that schedule is unsustainable. And so I would love to hear your feedback and input, but I'd appreciate if you'd subscribe to follow along. Hope everyone has a great day. Keep designing.